Hey everybody, welcome back to Giant Talk, the world's first OKR podcast. Hope you're all well and are looking forward to another episode. This week I am delighted to be joined by Julia Macalaster from the unbelievably awesomely named organisation Def Method. Thanks for joining us, Julia.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Where are we talking to you from today?
We're talking from New York City.
Ah, very nice, the Big Apple.
Yes.
And how are things over there at the moment? Good?
Fantastic outside of, it's so hot right now that when you walk onto the subway, it feels like you are in a sauna. So I guess
really?
Dual purpose, but it's makes commuting to work a bit difficult early in the morning.
Yeah, I can imagine. We're having the opposite problem in the UK at the moment with the weather being absolutely terrible this summer. But we're pretty used to that by now.
Yeah.
So today, Julia and I are going to be talking about using OKRs in a small business, which is something that a lot of you have got in contact with us about. I know a lot of our guests have come from larger organizations, more corporate companies. So today we want to focus on the smaller company. But first, Julia, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what your background is?
Of course, happy to. So my background is very much so in the startup space. The way that I came to work at Def Method was I actually started my own company called Preline, which is a predictive analytics company for fashion brands. And so in starting that company, I had to connect with developers. And so I connected with Def Method actually, and I was a client of theirs. They helped me build out the platform. And then I joined the Def Method team about 3 years ago. And so what we do at Def Method is we are a custom software consultancy. So we work with clients ranging from startups building out their first MVP to larger enterprises looking to build out different programs or products that their team doesn't have capacity for. And so it's been a really incredible journey learning more about technology, learning more about agile. Agile is, a word that's thrown around a lot in our consulting world, and really kind of process when it comes both to engineering teams, the engineering teams that we work with, our clients, as well as internally at Def Method.
Fantastic. So it sounds like a really interesting little setup. How many people are working in the organization?
We have about 25 of us right now. So it's the smaller side, but we're not
micro. And so are you all based in one New York office, or are you distributed globally? Or
yeah, great question. So we have our core team here in New York City. We actually also have contractors that we work with overseas in Ukraine, Israel, and Argentina.
Okay, awesome. So got to ask, Def Method, great name.
Yes.
Is it an awesome reference to Def Leppard or possibly even Def Jam, or am I way off mark?
I like to say that it is our founder and CEO, Joe Leo. He's very into music, but really when it boils down to it, Def Method actually is a syntax that developers write out when they're writing code in Ruby or Python, and it pretty much means define method, and so it's the verbiage, I guess, of the industry.
That is a huge disappointment.
I know. I'm sorry.
Next time, just say, yeah, we all just listen to Def Leppard all day. That's a better answer.
Yeah, just on repeat, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. So you guys are using OKRs at Def Method, are you?
We are, yes.
Okay, when did you first start using them?
When I joined the team, actually. Yeah, I carried them over. I had been using them at Preline and found them to be incredibly helpful as a startup founder in terms of making sure that we had a clear direction and shared goals for each quarter. And I took that process and I continued it forward with the Def Method team.
Okay, fantastic. So what was it about OKRs that attracted you to them at your startup and wanted to make you carry them across to Def Method then?
Yeah. I oftentimes attribute it to, it's funny, I tell this story about when I arrived at college and I was really excited to finally be on my own. And, not have my parents and my teachers always telling me what to do. I had a little bit more freedom, right? To determine my own schedule. Like, you don't have to go to class if you don't want to.
Go to class, kids.
Yeah, go to class. Well, this story actually says go to class because, I was like, oh, this is great. I have it. I know exactly what I'm doing. And yet I still found myself, the first big paper that I had at midnight, without a single word written. And I thought that I had a really clear process. And what had ended up happening was that along the way, various things had gotten in my way. The book that I needed was checked out of the library, and then that book ended up not being the right resource. And but I kind of stuck to the same original plan that I had at first, and I hadn't really changed it. And so, and I didn't really have. I had a thought in my head about this is how you plan, but I didn't really understand planning and how it can change over time and how it can morph and how you have to constantly be coming back to it. And so through that experience, I kind of had to learn how to plan on my own. And then I think that also happens in the business world when you kind of go from you're just the analyst and someone is telling you what to do, doing that and you're churning out work to the point where you're a founder of a business. And when you're a founder of a business, you wake up every day and you say, what should I be doing today? How should I be prioritizing my work? And it's not as if you don't have things that you have to do. It's the fact that you don't have enough time to do everything. And so you have to think about, how am I prioritizing my work? How am I thinking about tomorrow, this week, this quarter? And so that's where I find OKRs to be helpful. Is it's not just plan. To me, it's not I'm putting a stake in the ground and this is exactly what it is, and the plan isn't going to change. But it gives you that destination where you say, okay, I know I ultimately want to get to that destination. My route getting there might change, and it probably will, given the fact that you get along the way. But ultimately, I'm trying to get to that destination one way or another. And so that's where I've found OKRs to be really helpful. And that's why we implemented them at Preline was as founders, we were trying to figure out what we're working on today, and how do we make sure it's having the impact down the road.
Right, because I suppose it's easy in that little sort of microcosm environment to quite easily have two people thinking they're working quite aligned and actually also get 6 months down the line and realize they've not been working towards just quite the same end goal. And the more and more work you do, the further those end goals appear.
Completely. Yes. So the analogy that I actually tell to our clients all the time, because they always think that they're aligned. In fact, there oftentimes is some misunderstanding that exists. It's very natural. Is I bring up the curse of knowledge. So the curse of knowledge analogy and that experiment.
Sorry, say that again, Julia. We just lost you there.
Oh, sorry. So do you know the curse of knowledge experiment?
I don't. Please.
Okay.
Share.
So it was Elizabeth Newton, and she was at Stanford. I believe it was 1990. But we may have to fact check this after the. And she had about 150 participants come in, and she paired them up with one another, and she gave them really common songs that everyone would know, like Star Spangled Banner and Happy Birthday. And she said to them, I would like you to tap on the table the melody or the rhythm of this song. And the other participant that I've paired you with, they're going to guess what song you're tapping.
Right.
Before they started tapping, she said, please write down on the piece of paper how many songs you think the other participant will be able to guess that you're tapping. And The average that participants said was 50%. They thought out of the songs, about 50% of them would be guessed correctly.
Mm-hmm.
They actually started tapping out those songs. The percentage that were guessed correctly was actually 2.5%.
Wow.
And I always share this story with our clients because it communicates the fact that we think that we are aligned and we think that we're explaining things really clearly in terms of our goals, when really we're kind of tapping out incoherent taps on a table, and the person on the side of the table, they're trying to figure out exactly what. And so OKRs help to bring us to the point of saying, okay, we're fully aligned. They bring the team together and they make sure, do we actually know where we want to head as a company? Do we actually know where we want to head as individuals? Do we know where our teammates are heading, what their goals are, and are we aligned? So it kind of takes it from just tapping into let's like sing the melody together. I know that's a bit of a cheesy
harmonizing. No, I think that's a fantastic analogy though, because as your organization is scaling as well, that tapping on the table analogy is 1 degree of separation, right? Mm-hmm. By the time you get into a 25-person business like your own, it's probably already going to be 2 to 3 degrees of separation. And that Chinese whisper effect can take place. Mm-hmm. So the transparency there is a really important angle for you guys, I guess. Exactly. So has the OKR journey gone smoothly, would you say, at Def Method?
That's an interesting question. I think that it has in terms of our internal team. I think that OKRs are a bit easier when you're working toward internal goals that you can set out. Right. It relates to a consultancy. It is a little bit more difficult. And so that's where we've actually had some challenges around our OKRs is how do we have our consultants build their own OKRs when their ultimate success is so centered around what project they get placed on, right. Which it's really difficult for them to look down the road a year from now and say, oh, I know that I'll be placed on this type of project.
So what level have you rolled OKRs down to then? Have you rolled them down to an individual level?
Yes. So from the back office standpoint, in terms of how we're running Def Method, we do have individual OKRs being completed by each team member. Right. But we also have a company-wide OKR document that's available for everyone so that everyone can see our goals for the company and where we're trying to head and what our goals are for ahead. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I can see how on an individual basis for the consultants that would be tricky to pick the content for their OKRs, I guess, not necessarily having a clear view of what is 3 months down the road. Exactly. What we have found does actually work quite well is we have a ladder and a matrix that was built out by one of our principal engineers, which is very well thought out. And it's more so based on learning and training and honing in on certain skill sets and less right. about specific languages. So for example, if someone says, I would like to get better at React, which is one language that was created by Facebook. It might be difficult for us to say, oh, we know that you'll be able to get on a project that's using React within the next year. But right. If it's more of a general learning goal of theirs, they dedicate we have professional development time, which is dedicated to learning. And all of our employees get 4 weeks of time to do that and a budget. So they can say, I'm going to dedicate my PDT, which is their professional development time, to learning React. And that is something that they can control. So it's just figuring out what are the aspects of the job that you can control and what is that, what does growth look like from a consultant perspective in terms of what they need to learn and what skills they need to hone in on. And then how can we provide them with those skills and it's, it's not dependent on the actual projects that they're on.
Right. That's a fantastic idea. I love that. I love the idea of the personal and professional development, time allowance and budget. It must lead to a really nice culture within the company.
Yes, very much so. It's we also share what we've learned, and so one of our core values is continual learning, and I think that it makes it a really wonderful environment to be in, where everyone asks for insight from others, asks if anyone has learned or has resources that they can turn to. We have a big library actually in the office that everyone kind of has the ability to buy their own books for and put them into our library. So
that's wicked.
Yeah, it's a really wonderful culture in that sense.
It's nice to see values actually being actively represented within a company as well, rather than just written in 6-foot letters on the wall and yes. Talks about them.
Exactly.
100%. Yeah, it's really, really nice to see.
Yeah.
So, I mean, have there been any changes that you guys have made in the OKR process whilst you've been working with them?
That's a good question. I think in terms of how we've somewhat retrofitted OKRs from a company perspective, is that we actually, and you might cringe when I say this, but it seems to work for us, is we end up breaking our objectives just down into the various departments of the company, because it helps us to kind of just align in terms of what we're looking for in terms of our goals for each individual department. And so that is a bit of a retrofit change of an OKR, where we don't necessarily have the objective being like the overarching goal for the company, and the key result almost becomes like the objective, but it's still quantifiable. It's a bit odd. Yeah. Definitely retrofitted, but it seems to work for our company overall.
Well, that's what it's all about. One of the big problems, and apologies to listeners to this podcast, because this is probably about the 800th time you've heard me say it. One of the big problems with OKRs is there's no one-size-fits-all method.
Right.
It is an open source framework and methodology.
Yes.
So, 50% of the battle is making it work for your organization. And that can take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. It can take 2 years, if not longer. We encourage a retrospective to be done and tweaks and changes made to the process with every quarterly cycle. Mm-hmm. And it's all about that learning, tweaking, adjusting, just like any good engineer would do with their coding, I suppose.
Yep, exactly.
So
you're refactoring your own OKRs.
Yeah, and things change, cultures change, people change. You might get a second office, all those different things that are going to mean that you can't just keep on doing things the exact same way.
Exactly.
And especially for a consultancy like yourselves, the projects change, the clients change, and you have to live, learn, and adapt. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So what do the habits and routines look like at Def Method where OKRs are concerned then?
That's a great question. So in terms of the company OKR, we actually just do it on an annual basis. Okay. At this point, I think that actually might be something that changes. That could be something that actually is done on a quarterly basis. Right. We've just found it difficult to get the entire management team together on a quarterly basis, and saying that out makes it sound like just an excuse, but
no, I know how it feels.
Yeah. So we have our OKRs built out for the company on an annual basis, but then we do actually meet monthly as a senior management team to then go back and address our company.
Fantastic.
And see, are we hitting those goals? What do we need to do in order to hit those goals?
Awesome.
So that's on the company perspective. On an individual basis, we try to make our own OKRs on a quarterly basis, and we try to meet as a team to make sure everyone knows everyone else's OKRs. If everyone can't be in someone's OKR meeting, they're shared. We use G Suite. So we have a G Suite folder where we keep OKRs, and they're available for everyone to look at and see. Actually, something that I also visit whenever I'm doing a review of one of my team members, I'll go back and I'll look at their OKRs. That when we're doing the review, we're actually looking back at the OKRs, seeing how they've done in terms of hitting those OKRs, and then viewing from the other employees. So that's kind of on the high level in terms of OKRs. On a weekly level, we are an agile consultancy, so we actually we use a lot of the agile methodologies even for the back office team. Have your quarterly personal OKRs. A process that I've just implemented on my own team is we then we take those goals, and I really just take the objectives. We place them into a spreadsheet and kind of line them up in as the furthest left column, and then we have the days listed out as the other columns. And so every single day you highlight certain aspects that you're getting done that will drive toward the ultimate objective. So sorry, I'm not explaining this well. Furthest left column is your objective. Then the column to the right of that are the goals for the week that you're hoping to hit that will help you.
So they're like the initiatives.
Yep, they're your weekly, it's at the beginning of the week, you're thinking about how you are prioritizing what you're going to get done. But it's always looking back at your objectives and saying, okay, is this actually, this align with where I'm trying to get? It makes sure that you're not wasting your time on initiatives that aren't ultimately getting you to those key objectives. So you write out the initiatives for that week, and then you start to place them into each individual day. So you're able to see if you're overloading yourself on any given day. So you to slot in some of those, they always say, I think it's swallow a frog first, when you start your day. These are kind of those tasks, so typically in this spreadsheet, we're not putting in your run-of-the-mill meetings. It's more so those bigger, harder tasks that are going to take a bit more time. Typically, you only want to slot in like maximum 3 in any given day. Slot those in, and then you actually you put in the time in your calendar, you block out that time in your calendar to get those items done. What that makes sure of is that then on a weekly basis, you can drive toward those objectives, and it's not something that you come back to at the end of the quarter and you say, oh my gosh, I had all these great objectives. I thought that I would hit them, and then I just didn't have time because time, this is all an issue of time, right? If we had all the time in the world, then we'd get everything done. And it's about prioritization. How are you prioritizing your time? So we have this weekly spreadsheet. Most of us get that done on Monday, and that's just an individual effort. So again, it's a folder. Everyone can see everyone else's schedules for the week, what they're trying to get done for that given week. Awesome. And then on a daily basis, we have a daily stand-up. And so that very much so is, the Scrum Agile process. Meet as an entire team. We say what we did yesterday. We say what we're going to do today. And we talk about any questions or blockers that exist.
Fantastic.
And so that just makes sure that if there are things that require collaboration, if there are outstanding questions, I always say stand-ups are a way of making sure that pebbles don't become boulders. So pebbles are the small questions that come up on a daily basis. I'm trying to get toward this objective of hosting an event that will get 200 attendees. I think that we have the set of panelists confirmed, but I need you to sign off on it. Get that done today. It kind of this one person is a blocker now on that process being successful and on that objective being successful because we need to approve the final panelists. Really kind of a simple task, but by addressing that during the stand-up, we're making sure that we're churning through those tasks and no one's blocked for too long. And also those questions don't pile up, right, and become boulders that really block an objective overall.
100%.
And so that's kind of our process. So it goes, OKR on a quarterly basis. That's kind of your high level. It's I think in the book Traction they call it your rock, right? It's very similar. And And so we take those objectives on a quarterly basis. We break them down on a weekly basis for our weekly scheduler. And then on a daily basis, we connect as a team and talk about what we're actually getting done that day, what we did yesterday, and what we have questions about.
Okay. So that is a really fascinating insight into how your routines work, actually. And that's really achievable within a small business, right? Being able to get into those levels.
Yes, very much so.
And if anybody else was wondering what on earth Julia was talking about when she was going on about eating frogs, I've quickly Googled it because you had me pretty confused. And apparently Mark Twain famously said that if the first thing you do in the morning is eat a live frog, you can go through the rest of the day knowing the worst is behind you.
Exactly.
Your frog is your worst task and you should do it first thing in the morning.
It's what you avoid.
Who knew? I am definitely bringing that into the There Be Giants methodology. That is brilliant. Right. I've learned something new today. Every day is a learning day.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. The other thing that I remember you mentioning when we had a research call, and I think this is going to resonate with a lot of people because I'm sure everybody has either been this person maybe 10 years ago or is in this position now, about using OKRs with interns.
Yes. Yes, I actually have found it to be a really wonderful process for our interns. And so actually this came out of the fact that when we first had an intern on board, I actually was more stressed out trying on a daily basis to give them work due and make sure they knew how to do it properly, that they were trained properly on it. Even more than providing value. And so I started to question, I was like, I don't know if I'm really doing this the right way. And so I realized is that we could actually implement OKRs and give the interns a lot more autonomy. And that really was my goal with implementing the OKRs, was giving the interns more autonomy to just take a project and run with it, because these were really smart interns that we were hiring. And, they actually were able to help in a lot of aspects of the company. And they actually knew a lot of stuff that I didn't know that they could help teach me. And so what we put in place was at the beginning of the summer, interns, when they come on board, we actually outline a couple objectives that we think they could tackle. This helps a lot because it's really hard as an intern to kind of create your own objectives off the bat. So we'll say, okay, here are some areas where we know you could have a major impact. We need help creating the new website and migrating it over from the current one. We need help building out this cold email outreach campaign and figuring out a way to build out the drip email solution. And then we need help, assessing BDR, business development representative firms, right? So those might be like three of the objectives that we say we need help in these aspects. We have the interns come on, and for the first 2 weeks, we just say to them, collect as much information as you can. So we encourage them to book meetings with our engineers, book meetings with our senior management, get to know how the company is structured, get to know our pain points as a company. We have a lot of documentation that is available in our G Suite. We encourage them to read through all of that. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, we say, okay, come back to us and tell us your OKRs. So tell us where you think you would have the biggest impact over the next 2 months. I have them write down, some of them try to do 3 OKRs. I personally think that's 3 objectives. And I think that's too much. I think 2 is really aggressive as is for 2 months. So they come back to us and they present us with their own OKRs, which have key results tied to them, and they have to be quantifiable. Really cool about this, and what I've seen as we've implemented this process is that the interns take a lot of ownership over these projects and produce amazing results as it relates to their OKRs. So actually, if you go to defmethod.com, that website was built by one of our interns last summer.
Really?
Yes, and he was incredible. And his objective was to rebuild the website. Not only did he rebuild the website, he also redid our branding. So logo, the colors, all of it. He did all of that. He took ownership over it because he had the autonomy to do so, and we kind of gave him the tools and the support that he needed to make that successful.
That's wicked.
What's really cool about the process as well is that when they leave, part of it is you have the intern on board and they're providing you value by creating this content. And at the same time, you want to turn around and provide them with value as well. And part of that is either, you might be hiring them after they graduate from college, or you might be helping them to get their next job. And so, and the next step that I like spending a lot of time on is the recommendation letter, because that's kind of the gift that you're giving back to them if they did a good job at the end of the summer, at the end of the internship.
Yeah.
And because we're using OKRs when we're writing those recommendation letters, instead of saying, Bobby was a great intern, like they were really wonderful to work with, which is, what does that mean? How were they great? What did they actually do?
Sure.
What to say, Bobby was an excellent intern. He integrated our new cold outreach strategy. That cold outreach strategy has converted 20% more leads, which led to an uptick of 10% in business overall, right? Like very clear key results that came out of his OKRs. So then when he's taking that recommendation letter to someone, it's not just, they did a great job. It's no, they took ownership of a pretty big project, and here are the results to prove that it was successful.
That's just so much more powerful, isn't it, than what they would usually get back from most organizations they would go to for a couple of months, I suppose.
Yes, I mean, both for the intern, but also for the organization. You're getting so much more out of the intern. And really, like, they have the capacity to do this. And as long as you give them a project that is something they actually can take on, something that they can tackle within the 2 months, they have the capacity to do it.
I've got to say, I think that's really inspiring, and I think that'll spark a lot of light bulbs going off for the listeners 100%.
Yeah.
I think that is just such a creative way of using OKRs with a system of internship and work experience that is notoriously not the easiest to manage process.
Right.
And can feel like a bit of a drag.
Yeah.
Wicked. Julia, so last but not least then, question I ask all our guests: one piece of advice you'd give to somebody just about to start their OKR journey, or maybe in the first cycle or two of their OKR journey?
I think that overall, what I've found throughout my career is that having some sort of process in place, but not being married to that process, really helps in terms of making sure that you're able to hit your primary goals. And I think the first key to that is implementing a process that you can commit to.
Right.
I think it's really easy in the beginning to, get really excited, for example, about OKRs and do everything possible. And then a quarter from now, you've completely forgotten about what the OKRs were. And it's a process that's now, it's just a document that's living in some folder that wasn't actually actioned on. And so I think that it's more important to start with a process that you really can dedicate yourself to and say that I'm really going to make an effort to make this happen, and I'm not going to just let it drop off. And part of that is also holding yourself accountable. So, for example, create repeating calendar invites for yourself, so that it's always there in front of you, so that you can't ignore it. But overall advice is that process when running a company is so imperative in order for it to be successful. And so start with some process, start with a simple process that you can commit to, and go from there.
Fantastic. I think that has been such an enjoyable podcast to record. It's been a really fun conversation, packed to the brim with advice and takeaways for the listeners, and I think so much of it will have resonated with them. Julia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Lawrence, for putting together this podcast. This is really informative and a wonderful gift that you're giving to the listeners.
Well, we're trying.
Yeah.
And of course, as usual, guys, thank you so much for joining us. If there's anybody that you want to hear from, then just give us a shout, because we're pretty good at convincing guests to join us. Or if there's any specific topics on OKRs that you'd like us to talk about, please do let us know, because it's the only way we can really keep it going is with your guys telling us what you want to hear, really. So just drop us a message or join in the conversation on LinkedIn and Twitter and let us know what you think. But apart from that, thank you so much, Julia, for joining us, and thank you to all you guys for listening to us on your car journeys, your commutes, or if you're just stuck at work in the office. This was another episode of Giant Talk, the world's first OKR podcast.